Hello, everybody. This is Tao Exam Coach. Today, let's revise an interesting question in the reading and writing section of the SAT test. The question goes like this. In 1955, Indian Bengali filmmaker Satyajit Ray released his first movie, Father, Yada Yada, quiet black and white drama about a family in rural India. Ray's film was quite different from the loud, colorful action romance movies that were popular at the time. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English? Well, indeed, this is a grammar question, a question that requires to remember and apply correctly the rules of transitions and connecting devices for clauses within a sentence. A close examination of the paragraph shows that after the first three lines, ending in rural India, we see a comma, and then we can notice that what follows is actually an independent clause because we have here the subject and a conjugated verb. So this clause has to be connected to the prior part of the paragraph in the appropriate manners. We know that the first part of the paragraph couldn't be a complete statement. Why not? Because a complete statement, that is to say, a complete independent clause, couldn't end in a comma, something like this, after which you can place another independent clause. All right? This is a wrong construction. You cannot do this. It is called the comma splice error. So we know that the statement Ray's film was quite different, yada, yada, couldn't be beginning exactly at that point because you couldn't separate this from a prior independent clause with a simple comma. Since the part that is not affected by the blank is supposed to be correctly written, then we understand that somehow this independent clause containing Ray's film must start somewhat earlier, at an earlier point before the comma. Notice the different answer choices. Clearly, what follows the word padre, the first part of the name of this movie, well, it has to follow with Panchali. Padre Panchali is the name of the movie. But notice that in all the choices, there are no possibilities to see an ending device for the first independent clause. The only possibility to find an appropriate ending for an independent clause beginning at the beginning of the paragraph is here. This is a full stop, right? So the idea is that the first statement should be in 1955, this filmmaker released his first movie that was called Padre Panchali. Yeah, that Padre Panchali becomes an appositive for the first movie, right? Modifier. And the first statement ends there. And therefore, the second statement begins exactly at that point. A quiet black and white drama about a family in rural India, Ray's film. So now, a quiet black and white drama, that fragment becomes an appositive for the subject of the next independent clause. That is to say, Ray's film is the subject of the second independent clause, and the whole noun phrase before it is simply an appositive for Ray's film. And this is the correct answer choice. Notice that if we would say that the first option could be right, then we would have a long-running sentence. we would have the Bengali filmmaker release his first movie, Padar Panchali, a quiet black and white drama about a family in rural India. Okay, that could work somehow, but then you would have that the end of that clause would be the comma after rural India. And then you would have another independent clause beginning exactly after that point, which is the comma splice mistake. Same thing with option B, because in option B, you would have Padar Panchali followed by another relative clause, which is the which clause, which was a quiet black and white drama. Okay, it's pretty much the same as having an appositive following Padar Panchali, but you would have the comma after rural India marking the separation between two independent clauses, which is not acceptable. Same thing with option C. You would have an appositive following Padar Panchali, and then you would have a second independent clause starting at race film. Not acceptable. So the only possibility would be option D. See you on the next